Thank you, Ryan, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. You could go to the first slide, and I just want to based on the inspections that took place. We do verify that all the deficiencies are resolved in a timely manner with the engineer of record and general contractor, and we follow suit in scheduling an official re-inspection of those items. We process all required documents to include the PH 401, which is the 8-year record certification form, when seeking for a temporary certificate of authorization or use, or for the final, which is a certificate of authorization to occupy or use. The tenant coordinator is a partner throughout the process. They coordinate and guide through the PA review and the liaison with the appropriate PA staff as project may require to resolve issues, specifically design issues. We definitely reach out to them and coordinate with them to get the appropriate people together to assist should there be any design changes and change of engineer record, those processes. They will be issuing the TCA or the C of A to the facility. So each of the tenants will be receiving that from the tenant coordinators. Next slide, please. Roles and responsibilities for the tenant, the architect of record, and the contractor. The tenant is responsible for compliance with all the Port Authority requirements, to include sufficient oversight of the work. The engineer of record is ultimately responsible for the engineering design and compliance with all the applicable codes and regulations. They will remain with the engineer of record. They are 100% responsible for all the steps, all the inspections, all the official certification packages that are being submitted, whether for occupancy or not. The contractor is responsible for constructing the project in compliance with the governing regulations, the PA approved to construct or audited contract documents. They must maintain a set of current PA audit documents on site at all times and implementing the quality control program. The goal is to get to that final certificate of authorization, which I call close out. Next slide, please. So pre-inspection and pre-testing meetings. I highly recommend these meetings, although we do have a pre-construction meeting and we touch on topics, but this is really where I would I would expect the engineer of records to reach out to us as well as the contractor. Should there be any ambiguity with a process or inspection process that we are looking to have, and again, some topics that I have had asked and scheduled these pre-meetings is fire alarm. Fire alarm is an intricate part of acceptance for occupancy. We want to make sure that we all understand the requirements, and this is based on your jurisdiction, whether in New York State, New Jersey, as well as New York City. We are always looking for the test script procedures and have a meeting with our fire protection unit colleagues so that we could walk through the expectations of the testing requirements. The same thing with any health inspections. We will do the same vertical transportation so that at the end of the day, when you are looking for occupancy, we're all on the same page. This is highly recommended. Next slide, please. Field changes and scope changes, whether you add or delete scope. Field conditions. We're asking that the engineer and architect of record always perform their site visits while they're in the design phase. This eliminates any downstream impact to the project schedule and the budget, which affects the tenants to go live. During the construction, the engineer record should be notified whether it's for items that they come across or the contractor brings to their attention. They must notify the REO's office of any field change, no matter how small or large they are, especially if it's deviating from the PA approved to construct audited drawings. The resident engineer will determine the path to capture these changes, and we have the determinations on the bottom for life safety or code-related issues. The engineer record will work with our tenant coordinators to make that official submission to either add the scope, delete the scope, or modify. For any minor changes, the RE will concur for an as-built to be reflected on as-built. We'll try and keep that process very simple and straightforward. Next slide, please. All right, this is where it gets really intricate. As I mentioned, the REO, we partner, we audit the construction activities that are taking place. We require that the necessary testing is held. The resident engineer's office will be participating in those testing as they're scheduled. These test reports, again, whether it's special inspections or test reports, they must be submitted as the element of work is taking place. These reports should be uploaded into Trimble as soon as they are complete, reviewed by the engineer record so that the RE's office has ample time to review these special inspection reports and, again, discuss if there's any deficiencies in the mitigation plan moving forward. These reports should not be waiting till the end when you're looking for occupancy, when you submit the certification package. I'm going to hone in on the fifth bullet and sixth bullet, which are the NFPA forms. The NFPA 72 for fire alarm, they should be submitted each time a change is made to the program and, of course, testing. We should see a fire alarm printout, all submitted once it's complete. There should be no deviations to these documents. They are official documents. If there's an area or a section that's not applicable, we'll ask that you put an NA, but all the other information must be populated and the appropriate people should be signing those forms. They should be, again, officially submitted through Trimble to the RE's office. The same thing for the NFPA 13 and 24. That's the above ground and below ground piping. So whether it's fire protection or hydrant installation, again, NAs where this information not applicable and the appropriate signatures. I can't stress the importance of concrete special inspection reports being submitted in a timely manner, making sure they meet the design specifications. The same thing with the structural steel, making sure that all the testing, the UT reports, the calibrated torque wrenches and alike are all captured in these reports and immediately sent over to the RE's office via Trimble. Next slide, please.
Yes, I did. And I just wanted to let you know that it works.
Okay, next slide is the field testing and documents to REO. Again, this is a continuation of the prior. We are asking that we will look at the egress paths. We expect the engineer of record to do their due diligence as well, making sure that all the exit signs are visible. Again, what could be shown on drawings of 2D, but walking the site upon completion and ready for inspection, I'm sure that there's going to be a exit sign that may be missing. Testing the light levels, making sure from the point of egress to the beginning to the end, we have full illumination as required by code. Those reports should be uploaded into Trimble. When it comes to fire alarm testing, the resident engineer will be participating in your fire alarm pre-testing, and that is a combination of, again, the pre-test script that was submitted and reviewed with our colleagues at the fire protection unit side. We will be testing all devices with you, pull stations, verifying the decibel testing on your audible devices, ensuring that the water flow switches are set off, the HVAC systems that are required to shut down, testing elevator recall, your fire shutters. Again, if you have specialty equipment, the pre-action, FM200, Ansel test, this would be 100% inspections, making sure that we're ready to move forward to the Port Authority official acceptance test. I always ask that we also include in the review at that night inspection that we look at the fire alarm device, initiating device nomenclature, how it's read. Does it meet what the facility requirements may be, or the tenant requirements are describing a location, how it rings in? That should all be cleared and accepted. We do not want a simple item like this to show up as a deficiency that you would have to go back and reprogram and another fire alarm test to clean this up and bring this to conformance. We're always asking the engineer of record to verify the floor above, the floor below, the adjacent zones, making sure that the building operates as it should. Also, bringing focus to a security door versus emergency egress doors. Emergency code, New York City Building Code and applicable codes will trump security doors. So in your pre-test script, you should identify the security doors that also are emergency door release on fire alarm. So they should not be held closed on fire alarm. They should open as such, and we will be testing this during the pre-testing. You could continue reading the rest. I'm going to head and move on to the next slide for time purposes. Next slide, please. REO field audits and pre-inspections, again, continuing the what we look at for audit purposes. Please make sure that during your walkthrough, and this is again, the engineers of record, your contractor should know that all the valves that need to be painted, the code required colors are done, that the hydraulic plates at these valves are installed, and the necessary information is populated on these hydraulic signs. You need to make sure that the electrical panels, that they are properly named, showing the nameplate of the main source of feed to those secondary panels. Inside the cabinets, we have a numbering system to the breakers. The circuit breaker directory matches what's on the approved to construct drawings with the appropriate amperage. If there's a blank, we should see a blank. We shouldn't see an empty placehold for that's, again, a safety issue. We should make sure that if it's called out as a spare, that circuit breaker is in the off position. We should make sure at the time of the inspection that all the covers are properly installed, the panels are grounded properly, and all the necessary supports are installed. When it comes to distraction bands on glass, please make sure that they're already in place before you, again, call out for the occupancy certification package. Fire dampers, another critical item here. We should know what the rating of the wall is. It should be labeled. We should know if it's a fire damper versus a fire smoke damper. We should have a copy of the manufacturer's instructions list. We need to understand if it's an out-of-wall damper, in-wall damper, if the damper is made for a ceiling versus a floor. These are all specific to the manufacturer, and we should have a copy issued at the pre-con so that we all are on the same page. Should know that there's a static inspection, so making sure we have the proper annular space. We call our quality assurance division partners to come out there and review that static installation before we install the angles and continue with the installation of the fire smoke dampers. and I should say ductwork, making sure that the labels and tags are installed, the breakaways are installed, the access doors are not a 2x2. They are actual true access doors where you can see the blades. Should the maintenance individuals need to repair these dampers, they actually could put their hand in there to make the proper adjustments when they need to. So these are critical elements of work that needs to be complete before the REO will schedule an official Port Authority acceptance inspection. Next slide, please. We'll move on to field inspection and special inspections. Ongoing field inspections are required by the AU of record. They don't just show up at the time of a pre-inspection. This is required throughout the construction of the space. The third-party special inspection agency should also be on board making the necessary inspections. They should be qualified and independent of the contractor. These special inspection reports should be submitted as they are completed in the field, again, so that the REO has an opportunity to review and make any calls on a process for mitigation of deficiencies. The AU of record must submit via Trimble eBuilder the signed reports. Of course, it should be populated with the necessary and specific detailed information in alignment with the work. The AE of record is 100% responsible of the work and 100% of all the inspections. Next slide, please. This is the inspection process. So again, the engineer of record always performs a preliminary inspection on the special inspections checklist. That is the date that is populated where it says partial inspection. It is this date that the engineer of record independently goes out and performs their partial inspection. Once they complete the inspections, they repackage all the special inspections, reports, and tests, and they populate it and submit it with their partial inspection, whether it's not for occupancy or for occupancy, and again, at the final inspection. Re-inspections with the Port Authority, it is a success if we pass at the first go-ahead. It saves time on everybody else's part. If you have any questions, we have Ryan that will go through the inspection process with the certification packages. Next slide, please. Quickly, what to know. Areas of inspection must be inspected by the engineer of record, as I mentioned before. Again, looking at the surrounding spaces, above, below, egress, wayfinding, signage, making sure that all the fire alarm systems are compliant. The PA inspections are scheduled by the resident engineer's office once we receive a fully executed with all the backup information PH 401 form. We will again review the package. We have 5 days to review. Should we find anything not in conformance, we will not schedule the inspection until those items are corrected, and then we'll move forward. No inspections will be scheduled based on scopes with open design comments or deviating from the latest PA approved to construct drawings. The engineer of record is to lead the inspection team. The REO will make the formal introductions to the team. It is the engineer of record that is knowledgeable with that scope of work, that element of work, those elements of work, should lead the Port Authority through the process of inspections, identifying, highlighting, and being ready to answer any questions should the Port Authority have. Again, having available on, electronically RFI, submittals, shop drawings to help us understand. Again, the goal is not to generate any comments. Should there be comments at the conclusion, the REO will come together with all the attendees and review these items of nonconformance with a path forward, and hopefully we can get these items resolved in a timely manner and reinspection. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, as I mentioned, the AU of record must attend all inspections and be prepared to answer any questions. We expect that the design professionals that are required for those elements of work, like I mentioned before, participate. The general contractor must be prepared to conduct all the required testing, including resetting systems, providing access and equipment and ladders, It is the tenant's responsibility to coordinate all inspections and testing with the building or terminal operator. Next slide, please. I will defer this section to Ryan to review the AER certification package.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So all of you, or most of you, should be familiar with this package. This is the Architect Engineer of Record certification package. Basically, what we've done is we've removed the lead for cover letter, PH 212, PH 314, and special inspections checklist, and combined it all into one package for simplification purposes. Basically, what it consists in, and I'm going to run through this very quickly. This architect engineer record, I have someone who, there we go, thank you. The architect engineer record consists on the TAA number, tenant name, the facility, which you choose from a drop-down list, the project title, and please, when you do the project title, always do the project title as referred to in the QAD memo. You can do a copy paste and the date that you are completing this form. And you only need to complete this header once, as it replicates throughout the rest of the form automatically. If you are submitting for pre-construction, you only need to fill out part 1, which is this checkbox over here, part 4, which is the information for the architect's engineer record, and part 5, which is the special inspections checklist. And I'm going to go to this checklist so that you can see how it spawns and how it does everything else. If you are submitting for pre-construction, this form does not need to be signed and sealed. I say again, if you are submitting for pre-construction, it does not need to be signed and sealed. Okay. For part 2, if you're doing partial inspections for occupancy or not for occupancy, you need to complete parts 2, which is this checkbox. Part 3, the area of certification, and you will do a description of the completed work, and you will attach the sketch numbers. The sketch number, the title of the sketch, and the sketch date. Part 4, which is the information for the architect engineer record. Part 5, which is a special inspections checklist. And part 6, you will need to select whether you are certifying the project fire protection system and devices have been properly installed and tested, or if there were no changes to the fire alarm protection system. And if you are doing for occupancy, you will check this box below here that says, based on the above, all areas and equipment included in this portion of work covered by this alteration application are readied for their intended beneficial occupancy and use, and then you will sign and seal. Signing and sealing is the last thing you do with this form, because after you sign and seal, basically you can't do anything else. And if you do something else, it alters the signature and it's no longer valid. Okay. And if you're doing your final certification, the final certification is 2, 4, 2 this checkbox, 4 is the architect engineer record information, and 7, part 7 is this part over here where you check one box or the other and then you sign and seal. For part 5, which is always the tricky part, but I believe so, you may have got this down to the nail already. When you are completing the checkbox over here, you complete your name and title, phone, email, business address. You first choose your license number and which state are you working for. Either you're doing it for New York or New Jersey. If your license is from New York, obviously the location of completed work will only show up these 2 boxes as you here selected. If it's from New Jersey, only the New Jersey checkbox will become available. Once you check first the state license and then the location of completed work, then part 5 will spawn. Part 5, which is the next one, is this page that you see here. And how do you know you got the right one? Basically, you will see at the bottom, it says New York City checklist, State of New York checklist, or State of New Jersey checklist. For part 5, basically what we're asking you is which report of you're submitting. And then you will complete, if it's for pre-construction, you will only identify the responsible entity. It is not the architect engineer record that you are identifying for this part. It is the company that is doing the testings for this, or the report for this one. And there is a clarification that needs to be done. If you are adding, for example, in the pre-construction, saying that, let's say GBC or GBCS is doing the testings for this part, try to remain consistent throughout the partials and the final inspection, especially for the final inspection. If you're saying GBCS is the one that's doing the report, try to remain consistent with the naming. And for the final inspection, you will also add the testing date, which is in part G. And then for partial and final, there is an option to choose the type of inspection, and only here will you put the name of the architect engineer record and the date that this was done. And you also have a page for testings as well too, additionally to that, and additional spaces if needed. I'm going to, oh, sorry. Stop sharing. Here we go again. And I'm going to circle it back to Carmela so that we can circle back for this.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So let's continue with the engineer records final, what to know. Final certification is when all work on the entire TAA is complete. The TAA should not have no open design comments. You should have a no further comments in order to move forward to a final. All work must be in conformance with those latest PA approved to construct drawings, applicable codes. We need to make sure that everything was tested, whether it's fire alarm or any other system is tested, fire protection scope, life safety, egress, ADA ventilation, etc. All inspections and testing comments must be addressed and closed. We ask that as-built drawings are maintained throughout the process. The REO will also look to get a copy of that to make sure that we capture all the changes necessary before they get turned into the record drawings. Please take note that the record drawings, each sheet should be stamped record drawings, and they should be uploaded into Trimble for the tenant coordinator with a copy to the REO. Again, any other submittals, spare parts, applicable O&Ms and warranties should be submitted at that same time. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Okay. Key takeaways and tips for success. Again, strive for no further comments as soon as possible, hopefully prior to the pre-con. Any field issues should be identified as soon as possible. Again, don't wait for the last minute when the tenant wants occupancy. And here we are trying to figure out the path forward to expedite reviews and change drawings. It's really not prudent for anyone. The engineer record should be knowledgeable and kept up to speed with the contractor's field activities. So do as many on-site walkthroughs as possible between the tenant and the engineer record. Communication is key, keeping the REO informed at all times, as I mentioned. The EOR and GC to coordinate with the REO in advance, again, for any pre-inspections. That's the key to success. Planning ahead, having the GC always provide the REO with a 2-week look ahead so we could assist. We understand the milestones. We could plan for pre-testing and any kind of other inspection requirements that you may need us to do. A draft certification package is always recommended. There are many of times that we see special inspections are not included, they're missed. Check boxes are not correct. So we definitely would like to see that in advance just to help the process move forward slowly. Have your punch list items, those efficiencies that we capture during those official inspections, have them addressed as soon as possible. We would recommend a max of 2 weeks to get these items abated and ready for reinspection. Those are our keys to success. If you have any questions, we look forward to answering them at the end, and I'll pass this back to Ryan to continue the presentation. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
All right, Mr. Ed Vasquez, take it away for the quality assurance of inspections and testings.
All right, thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Carmela. That was a great presentation. My name is Ed Vasquez. I am the Assistant Manager of the Quality Assurance Division as part of the Engineering Department at the Port Authority. So I'm going to continue on the inspections and testing process as it relates to QAD and construction standards. So the inspection process where QAD is involved is obviously after construction begins. So Carmela already went over the REO CMD's roles and responsibilities, and then QAD gets brought into the process. So throughout the construction process, everyone must be aware of the fact, and Carmela repeated it multiple times, the engineer and or architect of record is responsible for conducting ongoing inspections of the work. So as a result of those inspections, the AEOR provides their certification that the work meets their design intent and the building code and all of the constructability requirements set forth in the contract documents for that project. So typical inspection intervals during construction where QAD gets involved or is invited by the REO to attend, as requested by the architect or engineer of record, are as follows. These are just examples of some of the intervals and phases in construction where QAD is invited to attend. So when we attend these inspections, we are auditing the process of the architect and engineer of record. It's their inspections, and we are there to ensure that all of the processes required by the Port Authority are being followed and all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So going forward into these certifications, as Ryan had described, the certifications are provided via the PH401 form. And this form is part of the certifications that's required to request for QAD to attend partial inspections and, of course, at the end of the job, the final inspection. So the REO reviews all of the architect and engineer of records documents to ensure all of the paperwork is in order. The REO is also, as Carmela highlighted, is also responsible for being more of the day-to-day contact for the tenant and the GC and the engineer and architect of record during construction until QAD is invited to attend based on the certifications received by the architect engineer record. So when QAD attends these inspections, we generate a field audit report to the REO CMD that highlights any comments or questions related to the scope of work as depicted on the contract drawings from what we see in the field when we attend these inspections. Next slide, please. So keys to inspection success. Now, obviously, we want to have inspections with minimal to no comments from QAD. That is in and of itself a successful inspection. So as the engineer and or architect of record is responsible for conducting all the inspections, the tests, and providing certifications of the scope of work related to these inspections and tests, all the work has to comply again with the contract documents. And part of those contract documents, as Carmela brought up, was or is the approved set, the drawing set that were approved for construction by QAD. And QAD is broken up into two units. There is the design review unit, design standards, and construction. So after design standards completes all of the reviews, no further comments memo issued, that's when the other side of QAD, which is a construction standard side, is brought into the mix, and we attend those inspections with the engineer of record. Now, the REO audits all of the ongoing and completed work. Sorry, you're jumping around on the slides. And invites QAD to attend these inspections based on the engineer's certifications. So it's very important to note that the scope of work as defined in the request for an inspection has no open design review comments. That means if QAD is invited to attend an inspection that relates to the framing of a fire-rated wall, there should be no comments related to any of those construction aspects related to that fire-rated wall, or at least in that area. Otherwise, QAD cannot attend any of these inspections because they, of course, have to be reviewed and approved for construction by our design standards unit. So there may be elements of scope of work that require special inspections and or contractor testing. So please ensure that all the special inspections and tests that are there to assist the engineer of record to certify the scope of work is accurate and consistent with the contract drawings. For this reason, these inspection tests should be completed prior to requesting QAD's attendance. So the AOR certification documents have to include the special inspectors reports and contractors test reports. If the AOR fails to conduct any successful pre-tests of the life safety systems and elements prior to requesting QAD's attendance, then it could lead to a failed inspection and, of course, result in multiple comments from QAD's attendant. Next slide, please. So during an inspection, there's different parties that are required to attend. So the engineer of record must be in attendance at all inspections because they are conducting the inspection and QAD is invited to audit the process. So if the engineer of record is requesting to have an inspection with QAD in attendance, they must have someone there that actually can speak to the scope of the work. So, for example, if there's mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm or fire protection, vertical transportation elements that are part of the scope of the inspection, QAD requires that someone there from the architect or engineer to be able to answer and speak to that scope of work. So if there's questions that are brought up in the field, it should be someone that's actually involved with that scope of work and knowledgeable of the scope of work to be able to answer any questions that arise. Otherwise, QAD will have to document these questions as comments on a field audit report, and then, of course, follow-up will have to be done from the architect engineer standpoint to close out these comments. Now, access to controlled areas must be coordinated by the general contractor or anyone responsible for providing that access. Now, access is for specific locations, but there's also equipment that's involved with some of these inspections. For example, any access to base building electrical closets to look at any of the scope of work. Those have to be coordinated prior to scheduling the inspection. Access to manholes to see any work that's done inside of the manholes, that needs to be coordinated. Secure, sterile, or customs areas access. Those are very critical areas that require access to be coordinated prior to the inspection request. And then there's also some equipment like ladders, lifts, scaffolding, etc., that have to be coordinated prior to the inspection to ensure that the inspection runs smoothly. Now, the general contractor must be prepared to conduct this scheduled testing. So in some instances, subcontractors are brought into the inspection to ensure that they can operate, test, and demonstrate, and also reset all of the systems that are affected by the inspection and the test. So this includes fire alarms, sprinkler systems, HVAC, life safety, etc. It is also the tenant team's responsibility and the general contractor to ensure prior to any inspections that all of the related activities are properly coordinated and communicated with the building, facility, and/or terminal operator. This is to ensure that any testing or inspection activities do not disrupt the safety of any facility occupants. Next slide, please. So what information is needed at the time of the inspection? So the 401 form should be available, signed and sealed by the architect engineer for review. This form, as was previously discussed by Ryan, includes the special inspection checklist. So all of that documentation should be filled out and presented at the inspection, or at least readily available. In some instances, special inspection and test reports from the third-party inspection agencies may need to be available. And any as-needed documentation that relates to the scope of the inspection. Some of the inspections require sketches to be put together to document the scope of work specific for that inspection. Now, please ensure that any sketches that are part of a certification cannot be a sheet from the contract drawings. They have to be a uniquely numbered and dated document. It could be a representation of a sheet from your drawing set, but has to be uniquely identified with the TAA number, a specific date of the inspection, and highlight the area that's being certified by the architect engineer of record for that scope of work. Additionally additional to this information, any manufacturer's installation instructions for life safety elements should be readily available at the time of the inspection. This is very important for a lot of elements, especially for fire dampers and fire smoke dampers. This is to ensure that the installations follow the manufacturer's specific requirements for these elements. If there are any structural steel shop drawings that might have any details that are more in-depth than the contract drawings, those steel shop drawings should be available to properly observe the constructed elements that are in the field. Any contractor test reports and certificates of completion should be available for any of the life safety systems that are part of the inspection. This is per the code, so those documents are required to be available at the inspection. And access to approved shop drawings or of specialty items should also be part of the inspection documentation. Next slide. All right. So that
Thank you very much.
concludes,
Yep.
that concludes my part. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we'll pass it along to Brian Haggerty for the prior protection part.
Sound check.
Sound check. Sounds good.
Okay, you can mute. Good. Yes, hello, I am Brian Haggerty, technical manager at Engineering QAD, covering fire protection and life safety systems. I began my engineering career in 1980, joined Port Authority 2014. I'm going to take you on a journey through slides we've shown before. Next. I'm going to take you on a journey through slides we've shown before in a larger presentation, most of which, and thank you, especially Carmela and Ed, for covering so much of this already. And not to be redundant, I'm going to just pick out highlights. So let us remember that, and you see it, a statement I made before, the weighing of the financial cost of fire and life safety systems against mitigating risk to life and property has already been incorporated into the code-making process. We're not going to second guess during an inspection. So the code is the law within its jurisdiction. The reference standards are selectively incorporated into the law. The TAA team must build to the NOC drawings. At least the TAA team should have, and generally does have, qualified experts. Your subject matter experts on your team include your architect and engineer of record and your specially licensed contractors, whether that be the FDNY licenses in New York City, the DCA licenses in New Jersey, etc. And the special inspection entity has qualified staff certified in the jurisdiction. So let's move on to something I've shared before. Coconut Grove nightclub fire in Boston meant something to my parents' generation, my father personally, cousins of his, lost friends. And growing up in that area, or the anniversary of the fire, people talk about it and everything. But let's remember that real fires happen. People actually die, properties destroyed, businesses go under. And the Coconut Grove fire is infamous, but it's not unique. And just selected here are a few instances over the 100 years from 1903 to 2003, and these things don't stop. And the Iroquois Theater is famous, and the Station Nightclub is famous. The Wellesley College fire is important. Total property loss, no casualties, not even the volunteer firefighters. There was evacuation planning and training by the students themselves. They used manually activated bell systems and a gong to get everybody out. And the building's burned with no one in there, and the college rebuilt. What is fire protection and life safety? And moving past the passive fire protection and active fire protection, which will be something you can think about, we have the definitions out there. The active fire protection life safety systems provide detection and activation, find out there's a fire, and notify people locally. Notification tells the occupants to get out, and then third-party notification sends the signal to the monitoring staff who get the first responders. And then whether it be sprinklers, other water-based systems, special systems, the suppression contains the fire, might even put the fire out before the first responders arrive. So what is your pathway in a TAA to successful inspections of the fire protection life safety systems? My recommendation is start with high-level concepts early in your design, take them from vision to reality, have somebody take care of the details, right? The whole team should know the big picture, and then the details should be assigned to the specialists, device selection, layouts, etc. Remember, the TAA team is expected to have the qualified experts. Use your experts. Now, on inspection and testing, better planning equals better inspections. It's been talked about before. Organize the scope, duration, the attendees, have all the trades there. It's a nice list here. During design, develop the draft testing plan. The engineer of record can make the testing plan or have the contractor make a testing plan as a shop drawing submittal. You have a lot of flexibility as a TIA team. How the entity, the tenant, likes to do work. A lot of the tenants are very experienced at doing real estate development. So do your pre-tests as Carmela outlined. Have your paperwork done, your contractor testing forms done, as Carmela and Ed both outlined. And if there's something not quite right, review that with QAD prior to the inspection. I've already had 2 meetings today with people saying it's not quite ready. How are we going to get an acceptance inspection? So let's continue on the theme at the next slide of better planning equals better inspections. Take corrective action expeditiously. All right, you do your pre-test, a couple things don't work. Ask REO to meet with QAD, get the contractors out to fix things, and decide you have to, a decision to be made collectively. Do you need to repeat the test, for example, or can we move into the actual acceptance test with QAD in attendance? On the next slide, we have fire alarm sequence of operation, devices, diagrams, some samples we took of documentation. Just to highlight, the input-output matrix format was voluntary. It could have been a narrative back in the past. Current code, mandatory. Input-output matrix. Please ensure your drawings have that when you submit. Here's a slide we can pull over, a list of various items you find in a fire alarm system. Your experts know about this, your engineer, your fire alarm installer. Some suppression items, your mechanical sprinkler engineer and your sprinkler installer know about these items. We have resources with the link in the TCAP for checklists. Next slide, please. For checklists and so forth. That's in TCAP. I'm going to revisit dampers, which is the next slide, please. It cannot be overemphasized again. Listed products. The listing is the code by adoption. You cannot install an Acme. Well, I don't want to use real names. That's not even a real name for dampers. It might be. You can't install a Bryant damper with an Ed instructions or a Ryan damper with a Bryant instructions. You have to use the right instructions. The screw spacing, the angle size, the angular space size, these can vary. You have to follow the actual instructions there that's adopted into the code. The code requires, all of these codes require, that listed products and assemblies must be installed in accordance with the specific instructions, because the installation by certain methodology is part of the listing, because that was what was fabricated when they did the actual laboratory testing to achieve the listing. We have a list here on the next slide of fire protection items, and that will be, I think, part of the record for the presentation. I have to read that for you, and that continues. But at the bottom of the slide here, your subject matter experts should know this. If you're not a subject matter expert on fire alarm, if 80% of the system is 75% complete, how much testing can be done? Now, as a former site project manager, I know that 80% of 75%, the contractor is going to be claiming, 60% completion. Okay, I won't dispute that, but how much testing can be done? None. If half the system is 100% complete, which is only 50% done, how much testing can be done? Almost all the testing of that 50% can be done. Almost all the testing of that 50% can be done. So even though it's less done, only 50%, something significant, probably more than a third of all the testing can be completed already, whereas 80% done with 75%, even 80% done with 100% of the system, if it's scattered throughout the areas, can't test anything yet. It takes more time overall. Think about that in your testing plan. Let's move on to what we're calling an inspection checklist. And this is a high level for clean agent protected rooms. I had this conversation in a meeting yesterday for an in-house contract. The physical installation inspection, is everything in the right places, all in accordance with the plans? The room integrity test, a tightly constructed room that can hold the agent concentration. That test is not valid if the wires haven't been run yet. We get room integrity tests sometimes, and then people come in and poke more holes to run more wires. You have to do it over, make more holes. And the system operational test is pretty straightforward, and your specialty contractor, usually they handle those very well. And now we've got a kitchen list on the next slide. There was a whole presentation on kitchens before. Wet chemical suppression systems such as Ansel brand. There are other manufacturers now making water mist systems and so forth. You've got health issues in the kitchen to prove out indirect waste, kitchen equipment inspection. Another important item is, on the mechanical end, the exhaust ducts. The specialty KX duct installations, some of these have zero clearance on one layer. They need 2 layers to have fire rating. We had that last week, and they have to be pinned. They have to have wires around, again, listed, manufacturer's instructions, follow the specific directions for the specific installation. And again, that's just highlighting some of the things that my colleagues have spoken of, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haggerty. And let's pass it along to our QAD Vertical Transportation Group. Vertical Transportation is going to be a highlight because they have their own webinar almost towards the end of the year. So they're going to touch upon a few things, but keep in mind that they also have an in-depth webinar on their own towards the end of the year. So Neil Mystery from QAD Vertical Transportation and Thomas Joes are here to answer ahead of time those questions you might have for them. So after this, we have the Q&A. So Neil, Thomas, take it ahead.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all the presenters. A lot of useful information. Also, just a volume check. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Neil Mystery. I'm with the I'm with the Quality Assurance Division in the Vertical Transportation Unit. I witness construction, acceptance, and post-construction annual inspections and tests for vertical transportation units within the Port Authority jurisdiction. Vertical transportation units, which include elevators, escalators, moving walks, dumbwaiters, vertical platform lifts, also known as wheelchair lifts, and material lifts. Thank you for the next slide. The inspection process. Vertical transportation tests are performed by the elevator installation and/or the elevator maintenance company and witnessed by QAD. The tests and inspections are performed and inspected to the relevant codes. Our objective is to ensure the vertical transportation unit remains safe for the public, maintenance personnel, and our inspection staff, while also adhering to the relevant codes. Here are most of the relevant codes. In New Jersey, the New Jersey Administrative Code and the New Jersey International Building Code. In New York City, the New York City Admin Code, the RCNY, which is the rules of the City of New York, the New York City Building Code, as well as NYCBC Appendix K, which is New York City's modifications to the ASME A17.1 and ASME B20.1 codes. Some of the elevator specific codes are the ASME A17.1 code, safety code, codes for elevators and escalators, ASME A18.1 safety standard for platform lifts, wheelchair lifts, and stairway lifts. Some of the applicable NFPA codes are the NFPA 70 National Electric Code, NFPA 72 National Fire Alarm Code, and NFPA 13 Installation of Sprinkler Systems. As a result of the final acceptance test and inspection, we will generate inspection comments and provide the inspection comments to our REO staff and CMD staff. As for the frequency of inspections, acceptance inspections occur prior to placing the vertical transportation unit into service. However, all design review comments, as previously mentioned, shall be resolved prior to scheduling a QAD inspection of the vertical transportation equipment. We also perform annual inspections, known as Category 1, 5-year inspections, known as Category 5, on all vertical transportation units within the Port Authority jurisdiction for the life of the unit. Next slide, please. Common errors and issues. I would like to discuss some common issues that we find during the final acceptance inspection. The first one is a big one: lack of pre-testing all devices for an acceptance test. The elevator/escalator contractor should pre-test the unit before the final acceptance test. During the pre-test, they should be able to find the majority of the issues with the safety devices, electrical components, and etc., so that we are not wasting our time for the elevator contractor to fix these issues during the final acceptance. So pre-testing is a key item. Providing an operable emergency two-way communication system inside the elevator cab. The code requires this system to be in place so that in the event of an entrapment, this communication device should be operable so that the passenger can contact the necessary emergency personnel and alert them of their situation. The emergency communication device should dial to a location that's staffed 24/7, where the necessary personnel can take action for the situation. The current building codes require cameras in the elevator so that the emergency personnel can see inside the elevator cab, and a means to display text and communicate with those who are hearing impaired. Incorrect or lack of The required etching on glass or plastic used for elevators, escalators, and moving walks is another key item. Each glass or plastic panel used for elevator hoistway enclosures, elevator car doors, elevator cab interiors or enclosures, escalator or move and walk balustrade panels, deck barricades, or ceiling intersection guard for escalators must have the required ANSI Z97.1 or 16 CFR Part 1201 code and the manufacturer's information etched permanently. And it must be legible onto the glass or plastic and visible after installation. European code standard etching is not acceptable. Areas in the machine room, control room, or shaft that are not adequately fire stopped or fireproofed. We recommend that QAD CSI group be contacted to also inspect the machine rooms, control rooms, and shafts for fireproofing and structural requirements. This one comes up quite often. Setbacks and ledges in the hoistway that are 4 inches or larger, and in New York City, 2 inches or larger. Hoistways are supposed to be constructed so that the interior hoistway walls are flush. However, at times, there might be building constructions or floor slabs that protrude into the shaft and creates a ledge or a setback. These ledges and setbacks throughout the hoistway from top to bottom must be beveled at an angle not less than 75 degrees with the horizontal and be beveled with materials that are applicable to the ASME code. The next common issue is unfinished surroundings for the elevator, escalator, moving walkways, entrances. I think that's self-explanatory. Machine room and control room layout drawings that do not match the design drawings and or the as-built drawings. Quite often we find that the installation may have equipment like machines, hydraulic tanks, controllers, or disconnects, as well as other equipment in locations that are not correctly shown on their design drawings. Inadequate lighting in elevator pits, control rooms, machine rooms, and elevator entrances. The code requires minimum light levels in each of the mentioned areas, and we find that the installation in most cases do not meet the code required lighting. Lighting levels at the elevator entrances at each landing shall be 10-foot candles or greater on the entire elevator entrance sill. This lighting requirement must be met with the elevator doors open and when they're closed. The next common issue, adequately enclosing the escalator and move and walk trusses and pits. The entire sides and undersides of the escalator and move and walkways and trusses for move and walkways and truss and pits must be enclosed with materials defined as either non-combustible or limited combustible by the building code. A lot of times we find that the escalator pits are open to spaces adjacent or even below, which is very hazardous. Signs or advertisements are not allowed in or near the safety zone for escalators and move and walks. The code prohibits certain signs and advertisements in the safety zone, and caution should be used when placing it near escalators and move and walkways. It can be a distraction to the riding public. Other common issues that are not on the list, however, I'd like to briefly discuss them with you. Non-elevator related equipment, conduits, piping, wiring ducts, etc., are not allowed inside the elevator control rooms, control spaces, machine rooms, machine spaces, and elevator shafts. Only elevator related equipment and equipment that is directly connected to the elevator system are allowed to be in these spaces. Another item is if you have a electrical panel in these spaces, they should only have breakers for the elevator equipment and anything in those spaces. Anything that is not related to that equipment or elevator equipment should not be in that panel. They should be replaced by blanks, essentially. Elevator, car, and hoistway doors with glass that are not flush with its metal surrounding or frame. The ASME A171 code requires that the car and hoistway doors that have glass be substantially flush with its surrounding frame. Often we find that it's not flush and the edges are sharp. This one comes up very often. Headroom requirements in mechanical spaces, including machine rooms, control rooms, and governor access areas, are as follows. Elevator machine rooms and control rooms must have a minimum clear headroom of 84 inches throughout the entire room. For governor access spaces that necessitate full body entry, a minimum clear headroom of 53 inches is required. Any large beams or obstructions such as conduits, lighting, piping, hoist beams must not comprise of the required clear headroom space. Lastly, but not least, public announcement systems such as speakers should not be installed in the mechanical rooms, elevator, machine rooms, control rooms, unless they are only used for life safety announcements. There is quite a bit of more items that come up. A list of these common issues can be provided upon request. Next slide, please. Keys to success. What are the key takeaways that the tenant coordinators, resident engineers, tenants, AORs, or EORs can do to ensure the success of the project? First and foremost, all design comments, as repeated previously, all design comments must be resolved prior to the final acceptance and test of the, final acceptance test and inspection. We recommend conducting walkthroughs to ensure project compliance. For larger projects, cyclical walkthroughs are advised, while for smaller projects, they can be scheduled as needed. The walkthroughs provide an opportunity to identify installation issues that may not meet code requirements, such as presence of non-elevator related equipment, wiring, or pipes in the elevator machine room. Additionally, walkthroughs help us become more familiar with the site. Again, a key item, pre-test the unit. Verify with the tenant/elevator contractor that the unit was pre-tested. Request follow-up inspections when most or majority of the deficiencies are resolved to avoid multiple site visits for just one or two items. We prefer to come out when most, if not all, of the deficiencies are completed. Ensure that all interfaces with the fire alarm system and fire protection have been successfully pre-tested. And ensure that QAD CSI has inspected the elevator spaces, machine rooms, control room, shafts, etc. And Ryan, I'll send it back to you now with any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Neil. And we come to the Q&A part.